Hi, this is Bob Costas, and you're listening to the ML Sports Platter.
ML Sports Platter back with you all over the major platforms. Download, subscribe, leave feedback, and a 5-star review. We are brought to you by Welch & Company Jewelers, the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, and our good buddies over at Bryant and Stratton College. 2- and 4-year degrees, they begin soon. Go ahead and log on to bryantstratton.edu today and find out where your future is with Bryant and Stratton College. In and around Central New York, you can obviously stop by their campuses in Liverpool and on James Street. Should also mention, I appreciate the support of the Swan and Whitaker families for the ML Sports Platter on a daily basis. And, of course, thanks to you, the listeners, as well. Let's bring him in, the voice throughout the season of the Stanley Cup Finals and the playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoffs and the entire NHL regular season. Kenny Albert, still to this day, I believe, is the only play-by-play man to do all 4 major pro sports right now: NBA, NFL, NHL, and of course, Major League Baseball. Kenny, welcome aboard here. Thanks so much. And boy, what a great run for the Tampa Bay Lightning and awesome work by you throughout. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm so impressed with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I mean, back-to-back cups in a cap era. Saw, 20 plus of these guys come through Syracuse. John Cooper, Brisebois and company. All these guys coming through the AHL Syracuse crunch. When did you realize that back-to-back was a reality?
Well, it's so impressive, Mike, what the Lightning as an organization have been able to do, winning the 2 Stanley Cups within a stretch of less than 10 months, both under unique circumstances. First in the bubble in Edmonton last year, and then this season, 2021, a short season, 56 games in the regular season, and then playing certain series in the postseason in bubble-like situations, in particular in the Stanley Cup Final. When did I know they can go back-to-back? I mean, I think during the regular season, most of us thought that the Lightning were certainly one of 5 or 6 teams who could challenge for the Stanley Cup. Now, they did not have Nikita Kucherov, of course, during the regular season, and they had quite the competition in their division from Florida and Carolina, the 2 teams they wound up beating in the first 2 rounds. But I think when you look at the job the Lightning were able to do last year following the sweep at the hands of Columbus in 2019, I felt they had as good a chance as any other team to win it this year. Now, they were also, helped out by the fact that Vegas and Colorado, the top 2 teams during the regular season, played each other in the second round, and the Golden Knights knocked out the Avalanche, and then Montreal wound up upsetting Vegas in the conference final, the semifinal round this year. So that certainly, helped lead to the second consecutive Stanley Cup for Tampa Bay.
No doubt. Vasilevsky, I mean, you look at these netminders, and he was up against Carey Price, and Carey Price was getting a lot of the accolades, and he's only missing the one thing, and it's the Stanley Cup. And actually, he's been the guy that most people should follow as far as this kind of recent generation of goaltenders. And I'm going, Carey Price is pretty good, and they wrote him, but I think Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the league. Was there ever a moment that you felt that wasn't the case? And obviously, the guy proved it in the Cup Finals. He was spectacular.
He certainly was outstanding throughout the playoffs once again. For the second straight year, Vasilevsky started and finished every game the Lightning played in the postseason. And that hasn't happened for back-to-back championship teams since Ken Dryden back in the 70s, starting every game and playing every minute for your team in back-to-back title runs. So I felt the Conn Smythe Trophy was certainly well-deserved by Vasilevsky. You could have considered Kucherov and Braden Point and even Victor Hedman, who won it last year, and Ryan McDonough, but there was no doubt in my mind, and Eddie Olczyk and Brian Boucher agreed, and they mentioned it during the telecast throughout Game 5. Some of the numbers were incredible. Shutouts in every series clinchy game this year.
Mm-hmm.
Shut out Dallas in the last game of the Stanley Cup Final a year ago, so that's 5 straight shutouts in series clinchers, and was really the backbone of this team. John Cooper talked throughout the playoffs about the fact that the Lightning could play so many different styles. They're not the high-flying Lightning that we got used to, 4 or 5 years ago that would outscore teams 5-4, 6-5. When you look at how they've played in the playoffs the last 2 years, they won so many 1-0 games, including Game 7 of the semifinal round against the Islanders and Game 5 of the Stanley Cup final, I should say, against Montreal.
Nikita Kucherov's post game was hilarious. He obviously was, he's there shirtless with the Bud Light, and he's sounding off on all sorts of stuff. And you hear from national media, right, who don't talk about hockey on a daily basis, and hey, shame on them, right? They talk like, oh, well, hockey, this is good for hockey. The sport needs this. Do you think that, Kenny, do you think that there needs to be more like flamboyant acts in hockey as opposed to just keeping to the book with the quotes? Do you think that the sport benefits at all from the Nikita Kucherov postgame?
I actually did not see the entire postgame press conference. We were still on the air and then traveling back to the hotel, so I saw clips of it.
Sure.
I don't think it's a bad thing in general for players to show their personalities. You don't want everybody to be robots. Every situation is different, but Nikita Kucherov certainly had an unbelievable playoff. Led the NHL in scoring for the second straight year during the postseason after not playing at all during the regular season. And I've seen some of the footage and photos of the celebration after the Lightning won the Cup. You think back to Washington and some of the celebrations with Ovechkin and his teammates after the Caps won the Cup. So I think it's neat for the fans to see the emotion and the passion of these players. And like I said, a little bit of personality isn't necessarily a bad thing. We see it in the other sports and in basketball and football and baseball to an extent as well.
Kenny Albert with us on the ML Sports Platter, brought to you by Bryant and Stratton College and Stanley Law Offices, of course, the voice of hockey on NBC throughout the year, the playoffs and the Stanley Cup finals, as well as the Lightning winning back-to-back Stanley Cups. Obviously, Kenny, this team, they were around the Stanley Cup door. I mean, they were knocking on that thing over and over again, just couldn't break through. And all of a sudden, Blake Coleman, right? All of a sudden, Patrick Maroon. All of a sudden, they can win games 1-0. When did you see the Lightning with this crew, where they can, they're not going to beat you 5-3 every single night. If they need to lock down, if they need to beat you 1-0, Vasilevsky in goal, tightening up on defense, led by, I think, the best defenseman in the game in Victor Hedman. When did you figure out and realize that, man, that missing ingredient that they now have, like the proof is here. They've learned to win those games 1-0. They've learned to win in lockdown fashion.
No, you're right, Mike. I think after that sweep, when they were on the losing end against Columbus in 2019, they realized that they had to play a bit of a different style, and they went out before the deadline last year and acquired Blake Coleman, who you mentioned, Barclay Goodrow. They were placed on a line with Yanni Gourde, and it gave them so much grit. And those guys score big goals as well. So, and then bringing in defensemen such as David Savard and Zach Bogosian and Luke Shen last year. So they still have the skilled guys, as we talked about, in Kucherov and Point, right on down the line, Steven Stamkos. Alex Killorn gives you a bit of both, the scoring and the grit. But I think it was the acquisitions of Coleman and Goodrow and some of the others who I mentioned who really helped put the Lightning over the top. John Cooper admitted that was the turning point when they acquired those guys and put them together with Yanni Gourde. It just gave them such an additional element to their squad that they did not have before.
Boy, Eric Chernak, man, he's become some defenseman, huh, Kenny? When you watch him play, what do you see?
Yeah, he really has. He's big, he's strong, he's tough. He scored some big goals during the playoffs. Opened the scoring in the Stanley Cup final. Another great move by the Lightning front office. He was acquired in the Ben Bishop deal from L.A. about 4 years ago. You look at the acquisition of Mikhail Sergachev from Montreal for Jonathan Drouin. So whether it was Steve Yzerman, the previous general manager, or Julien Brisebois, they made some terrific moves in I don't want to say putting the team together because, they did draft players such as Kucherov and Point, Stamkos, who I mentioned before, but supplementing with other really key elements who helped in a large way lead the Lightning to their second straight Stanley Cup championship.
So what's next for this team? I mean, it's back-to-back, the grind, the preseason, the regular season, the postseason. And then you had the Corona situation. I mean, this is, back-to-back Stanley Cups. It takes a toll, and you got to just reset and go right back out there again. You got to deal with the salary cap. What's next for this team? Clearly, there's going to be pieces missing. I assume Blake Coleman's going to get a monster deal somewhere. Can they, though, with the core and maybe the smarts of the front office, can they give this thing another go next year?
Well, you're right, Mike. They certainly have played a lot of hockey starting last August in the bubble, going right through late September 28th. And then they had 3 months off, October, November, December, picked up in January and went through until early July. And now it's going to be a real short off-season with the regular season starting right around October 12th. So no team has won 3 in a row since the Islanders in the early 80s. They won 4 straight from 80 to 83. So it's not that easy. It hasn't been done in nearly 40 years. The Lightning will have salary cap issues, as you alluded to. So, they'll most likely lose one player to Seattle in the expansion draft, and then you would think 2 or 3 other key players. But they still have a terrific roster. We mentioned the division. Now, it sounds like the NHL might revert back to the prior divisions from 2 seasons ago, in which case they would lose Carolina if they do go back, but they would gain Montreal, for example, back into their division. The Florida Panthers had an outstanding year. So, I would think they'll still be one of the top 3, 4, 5 favorites to win the Stanley Cup next year, but there are some other terrific teams out there as well.
Kenny Albert, NHL and NBC all year, the playoffs and the Stanley Cup Finals. Terrific voice of hockey on NBC. You can get Kenny on Twitter, of course, a must-follow at Kenny Albert. Couple more for you, Kenny. Steven Stamkos, he doesn't have blow-away numbers. He doesn't have Lemieux, Gretzky, Bobby Hall type numbers, but he's got pretty solid numbers. He's had injuries, of course, but you look at him. He's over 800 points. He's over 400 goals. He's over 400 assists, and he's played 12 years in the league. But he's got 2 cups, and he's scored some big goals. And there's been a lot of people now talking. Hey, this guy might be going to the Hall of Fame. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer?
I think you certainly have to consider him. He's a guy that's won the Maurice Richard Trophy.
That's right, too.
As the top goal scorer in the league.
Yep.
Earlier in his career, he's now been the captain of 2 Stanley Cup teams. Now, the numbers, haven't been what they were earlier in his career in recent years due to the injuries. Missed most of the playoffs last year, played in the 1 game in the final, scored a big goal, and then was obviously a big part of the Cup run this year. So I think you certainly have to consider him for the Hall of Fame. Oftentimes, the playoffs do have a big effect. Guys that have won championships on top of what we've seen from them during the regular season. So, absolutely, given that he won the Richard Trophy, had a 60-goal season, has had a long career, has put up great numbers, and has been the captain of 2 Stanley Cup winning teams. So
now that the hockey season's over, have you gotten a day or two to celebrate with Dad on his career?
I did. By virtue of the Lightning winning in 5, I was able to make it to a celebratory dinner.
Good.
The next night, actually flew home from Tampa Bay last Thursday.
Well, thank you, Tampa Bay, huh?
if the series had gone past 5 games, I would not have been able to attend the dinner. So it was a terrific night. Many of his colleagues from throughout his career were on hand. So it was great to be a part of that on Thursday night.
Have you ever gone through his old calls and just listened? Whether it's now you're as good as it gets as a play-by-play guy. But when you were younger or starting out even in the business, whatever the case may be, even now, do you ever sift through and listen to old calls of his?
Once in a while you might stumble upon something on YouTube. I think over the last 45 plus years, I've heard so many of the big calls live or on tape or on highlight reels. Last summer we all watched The Last Dance, the documentary, during the pandemic, and so many of his calls were highlighted on ESPN during the 8 episodes. So it's always fun to go back and listen. For example, during the Stanley Cup, I actually went back and listened to many of the Stanley Cup winning calls from guys such as Gary Thorne and Mike Emmerich, just to kind of prepare for the call that I was going to have whenever the series came to an end. So I always love going back and listening to old calls, but with his retirement in particular, there were a couple of half-hour shows on Turner, for example, chronicling his career. So they're on the DVR. I was away for about, so I'll definitely have to catch up on it now that I have some time.
Yeah, my favorite of his all time is, a spectacular move by Michael Jordan that with the right to left and
I won a couple of times.
Oh man, yeah. That's etched in my head forever. And your call, by the way, to close the Cup Finals was awesome. The Lightning strikes twice, I think it was, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning have won their second straight Stanley Cup. I think I have that right word for word. Does it happen in the moment? Is it written down, Kenny?
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. I have to admit the Lightning strikes twice line did pop into my head the day of Game 4.
Okay.
So you never want to be totally scripted,
Sure.
in my opinion, in those situations. But you also want to be ready. And it's ironic, Chris Cuthbert, the tremendous hockey play-by-play broadcaster north of the border who was handling the national telecast for Rogers Sportsnet up in Canada, I'm told he had a real similar line to mine right at the end of the game on Wednesday night. So, proud to share the spotlight with Chris as far as that last call. But, it wasn't written down. It wasn't totally scripted, but that line did pop into my mind on Monday as we awaited Game 4, which could have been the final game had the Lightning won that game in Montreal.
Final one for you. I got to tell you, it was just such another unbelievable year watching the games. The coverage on NBC is amazing. And having said that, I'm really going to miss it on NBC, Kenny. I really am.
Well, it was a tremendous run, and I was so honored to be a part of it for about 11 or 12 out of the 16 years. I'm biased, but I think NBC raised the bar as far as hockey coverage in the United States.
Yeah.
So many games, over 90, 100 games every regular season, every playoff game televised, the introduction of the Winter Classic and the Stadium Series, the introduction of the inside the glass position, tremendous play-by-play for 15 years from Doc Emmerich, great analysts, Eddie Olczyk, Brian Boucher, Pierre Maguire, Joe Micheletti, Keith Jones right on down. So it was a great run. These things sometimes go in cycles, and you never know what might happen in the future, but very proud and honored to be a part of the NHL and NBC family.
By the way, how about Pierre Maguire? I think I saw on Twitter earlier today he's heading over to the Senators in a front office role. Is that right?
Yeah, great news. So happy for Pierre.
Yeah.
He's been a friend for a long time and colleague, and I know at times during the last decade, he's talked about potentially, jumping back to the other side and working in the front office. So could not be happier for Pierre and his family.
Well, he had to call the Stanley Cup playoffs, the finals, all year, the lead play-by-play voice, National Hockey League on NBC, one of the best in the business, at Kenny Albert on Twitter. Kenny, enjoy the rest of your summer. Again, hats off to you on just a remarkable season yet again, and look forward to more calls down the line, and hopefully I can run into you again like I saw you in Central New York a couple years back. Thanks for doing this.
I hope so. Thanks so much, Mike. Really appreciate it.
The ML Sports Platter is brought to you by our great, great friends at the Al and Angus Pub, the Vince Aguirre Consulting Group, and Liverpool Physical Therapy. Make sure you visit liverpoolphysicaltherapy.com. Find out more information on Liverpool Physical Therapy. Don't forget, no doctor prescription is necessary for the first 10 physical therapy visits in New York State. Liverpool Physical Therapy on Instagram, on Facebook, a proud ML Sports Platter sponsor. Tip of the cap thanks as well to Rosie's Corner and Camillus Golf Club. So just wanted to spend a few minutes in closing on this podcast and how good was Kenny Albert. Novak Djokovic is now at 20 Grand Slam titles after securing his win at Wimbledon over Berrettini, who, by the way, is a really, really nice player. Matteo Berrettini, the Italian, just a sensational player, big guy. He's made it deep into the Grand Slams multiple times this year. He's number 8 in the world, I believe. He's coming for a Grand Slam in the not too distant future. But unfortunately, again, he's been playing in this era with Federer, Nadal, and Joker. And look, here's the thing. Novak Djokovic, he got, I believe, in the U.S. Open last year, he got disqualified because he hit a judge. I actually thought it was BS, but cancel culture gets involved. So he hits like an usher, a judge, whatever you want to call it, and he gets kicked out. He's got a little bit of an attitude, when points go long and he wins them. He does that wrestling Hulk Hogan thing, waving his hand kind of towards his ear. He wants to really, I think, ruffle a lot of feathers in tennis. Crowds don't necessarily warm to him that much. He doesn't have the brand of a Federer. He doesn't have the brand and popularity of a Nadal. He doesn't play an exciting brand of tennis like the serve volley of Federer or the crazy athletic insanity of Nadal going baseline, to baseline almost in Andre Agassi fashion times 10. He doesn't maybe have even the level of humility that Federer and Nadal have, which I think a lot of tennis fans appreciate and warm to. Sampras was like that. Federer's like that. Nadal's like that. There have been players like that in the past. Rod Laver was like that. Arthur Ashe was like that. But you can't deny. You just can't deny what he's done. He's got 3 U.S. Opens. He's got 2 French Opens. He has now 6 Wimbledons. And then he has 9 Australian Open Grand Slam wins. He has 20. And the thing is, too, is his record against Fed and Nadal. He's got a better record head-to-head. He's got other things to add to it, too. I mean, he's won 85 times in the Open era. That's 5th all-time. He's won 968 times to 195. He has an 83.2% win percentage. It's an 83.2 percentage in ATP Tour and Grand Slam main draw matches, and in the Davis Cup, first in the Open era over everybody with that percentage. And here's a biggie. He's 34, right? Like, he's not the age. I mean, Roger Federer, I think, is done winning Grand Slams. Now, I said that about Tiger Woods one day, too. He proved me wrong. I only hope Federer can prove me wrong because I'm a huge Federer guy. But he's going to be 40 years old this August. I mean, come on. I mean, when does it stop, right? Like, when does he just not win anymore? Rafael Nadal's 35, a year older than Joker, but he's got a lot more miles on the vehicle because of how he plays. And he's second in win percentage behind Joker. But it's Joker's in the driver's seat here. Actually, both of them have an 83.2, but I think the tiebreaker goes to Joker because of probably head-to-head or whatever. But you can't argue right now what the guy's done. I would still put Federer right now today because of accomplishment and the overall part by a smidge over both Nadal and Djokovic as the greatest player of all time. But what I'm getting at here is Djokovic, if he stays healthy the next 4 or 5 years, he's going to have a shot at 16, 20 more of these majors, these Grand Slams. I say majors first because I'm a golf guy first. Even though I did play varsity tennis, love the sport, golf is still a little bit ahead. He wins another, let's say in the next, because he's going to start, I would assume Father Time's going to start getting him at some point, 36, 37 years of age, whatever. Let's say Father Time starts attacking him around 38, or 38, 37, 38. That gives him a good solid 3 years if he stays healthy in his prime with good knees, good back. Father Time not quite getting him. He's keeping himself in crazy good shape, just like all these guys do. But let's say the rest of this year at 34, he's got, one more Grand Slam, which is the U.S. Open. He's going to be the favorite to win it. I think he will win it, actually. You're looking at the Joker Slam, too, in terms of the international play, the Olympics, et cetera, et cetera. He wins that one, he's going to have the most ever. at 21. And then from there, age 35, 36, 37, that'll be 12 Grand Slam attempts that he'll have. And then maybe 38, 39, 40, he starts to dwindle down a little bit, and he gets into some of the trouble that Federer has. Maybe he withdraws a couple times. I mean, you can't really predict the future right now, but I would say the next 12 to 16 Grand Slams, if he stays healthy, before Father Time starts to wear him down just by default, that's the window he has to blow this thing out of the water. And in order to blow it out of the water, he's going to have to obviously prevent Nadal from winning, and he's going to have to win clearly. Those are the two biggies. I think he's got a real shot at it. I think he's got a real shot at over 12 to 16 Grand Slams before Father Time maybe starts taking a couple more, swings at him. I think the guy could win another 6, 7 Grand Slams, maybe even 8. And if he does that, we're talking about 28, 27, 28, 29 Grand Slam titles. That's a lot. I mean, that could be 8 or 9 more than Federer. I think Nadal will win, a couple more too. But let's say like Djokovic ends with like 28 and Nadal ends with 21 or 22. I mean, that's 6 more. It's not 1 more. It's not 3 more. The separation's there. And so I think that's the next logical step to look at for Djokovic is how many of these things can he win? Can he distance himself from Federer, from Nadal, from other tennis greats, and just being the blow-away greatest of all-time player? ML Sports Platter brought to you by our great friends over at Welch & Company Jewelers. Log on today to welchjewelers.com. Shop the showcase for engagement rings, wedding rings, you name it. They've got it all at Welch & Company Jewelers. Get your watches fixed at Welch & Company Jewelers as well if you're in and around Central New York. They're right there on Route 11 in North Syracuse across from Lonergan Park. A big tip of the cap thank you as well to Ken's Auto Detailing, Barks and Rec Doggy Daycare, CNY Electrical, and our great friend Matt Graham at State Farm. Get a free rate quote today if you're in and around Central New York or the state of New York as a whole. He can get you the information as well on the rate drops currently happening with State Farm. Like a good neighbor, State Farm and Matt Graham are there for you. Auto, home, life, bank, health, and business. SyracuseInsuranceAgent.com. Go visit the website. Call Matt today as well. 315-455-FARM. That's 315-455-FARM. SyracuseInsuranceAgent.com. Get a free rate quote today from Matt Graham of State Farm. Thanks again to Kenny Albert. This is the ML Sports Platter. Hit me on Twitter at Mike L Sports. As I always tell you, enjoy the games.